Hi, welcome to another episode of the Black Guy Who Tips. I'm your host, Rod, joined as always by my co-host,
Karen.
and we are live on a Tuesday, ready to do some
We
podcasting.
are.
As always, I was on the radio today, so you may have heard me
Yes, yay.
locally if you're in Charlotte, or I guess you can be anywhere with the internet.
It was streaming.
But I got to do live sports radio for an hour, and
hmm
my parents texted me and said it was good, and my uncle hit me up on Facebook and said he enjoyed it, and it also comes out in podcast form. So
hmm
if you want to hear some very insular Charlotte, North Carolina sports talk,
Yeah, they talked about Transformers too. I listened.
oh yeah, we
I
did,
streamed it. Yes,
we did talk
yes.
about
It's
movies.
WFNZ.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is you can listen to it on podcast if you just search Wes and Walker, the Wes and Walker Show. That's what I was on, and it was fun. And I've never done live radio in the studio before, so that was cool.
Yeah, because I asked you about it because I was like, that's got to be completely like different. So that's I was like, well, how was it to actually be in the studio?
Yeah,
That's why I had all those questions.
I feel like it's that 10,000 hours. We've done this so much that it was like riding a bike. I just hopped right in,
Yeah.
and then because it's radio, I know not to curse and stuff. I'm able to. I'm luck. That's one of my gifts is I can turn it on and off.
hmm
So there was no like weird moments. They have to dump anything I said or whatever.
Yeah.
There
You.
were some buttons in there that were a little different. So like,
Okay.
there's a button for if you want to cough. There's a button for like yeah, if you
Whoa.
want to like mute or whatever. There's like so there's some
Okay,
differences.
like that's some of the questions that I had, like like for the board and like that part of it,
Yeah,
because I know you've done like the Karen Hunter show, because I know that
right.
you've been on like radio before, but it's different between that and you actually
I know.
physically
I'm
being
just
in
I'm
there.
just telling you, it's like riding a bike. It felt like
Okay.
I could have done it from here. It just felt like it wasn't that. I don't get nervous about that kind of stuff. I don't know why, but it's the same way when we do a live podcast,
hmm
and I know you and Justin and other people get nervous. That's when I'm the least nervous. So, but it was great. It was fun, and I had a good time. And they were like, you got to come back, and I was like, I'll try, because it was hard to go that time because I'm so damn busy. I always got some shit to do. I always
Yes.
think I'm not busy, but I started this new practice this week of writing this month of writing down every single thing I promised to do on the physical calendar, and I
Yeah.
look up and every day has some shit.
Everything it's something for you. Every now and then it's something for me, but most of the time it's for you.
Yeah, there's always some shit going on. All right, without further delay, though, you saw the episode description. I don't know what the title's gonna be in the future, but it's probably
Mm-mm.
some really clever pun. We
Yes.
have comedian, podcaster, friend Myq Kaplan. What's going on, man?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Here are the 17 things I thought of while you were talking. Number one, I I love that you say one of my gifts is that I can not swear if called upon. I like a lot of people don't have that gift. It's true. For some, a curse. I love that it's the Wes and Walker show. I'm sure they're very successful. They've got a live radio show. You're on it. Your family. That's like another level of fame when your family can find something that they're like, what's a podcast? The radio. You're on the radio. You
Yes.
have made it. Madio on the radio. That's the name of this episode. And I mean, we've just gotten started. But Wes and Walker, if you're listening, and why wouldn't you be? I love your name makes sense, but what if you called it Wes or Walker? Because or can mean like only one of you has to be there, but if both of you are there, it's totally fine. Like, is it gonna rain today or tomorrow? If it rains today and tomorrow, still or works. And if you do Wes or Walker, then your abbreviation is WOW. So I like that. WOW. Speaking of letters, as I only am today and never before, on Thursday night last week in New York City, I went to go see Zach Sherwin's The Crossword Show. He was on an East Coast tour. And in the show, y'all's name, the name of the podcast, comes up as an example of a super vocalic phrase, one that has all 5 vowels and only one of each of all 5 vowels. In fact, your name
Wow.
is Yuri vocalic, all 5 vowels, plus the sometimes Y in guy. The black guy who tips, it's a perfect name for that because 5 words, each
Oh.
one with a different vowel. And the Y goes along with the U, which is probably like the vowel that needs a buddy. You know what I mean? Of all the vowels, it's the loneliest one. And also in the word buddy, you've got U and Y. Anyway, that is, so I'm glad you weren't nervous. Karen, it's fine that you're nervous sometimes, but I will tell you that I am most nervous when I am riding a bike because I have never learned how to do that. And those are the 17 things.
Wow, it probably was 17. I'm not even
I didn't
sure.
count, but I'd love it if somebody did.
Someone's gonna go back and be like, it was 17, guys.
Yeah. I'm not counting it. I didn't learn to ride a bike until I was much older. The biggest reason why is because like I had cousins that learned and I was older and I used to watch them ride a bike and it was like watching a live car crash. They would just get on and just run in the poles, run into the side of the house, run into the shed, run into the fence. And I was like, nah, I'm good on that. I was like, that don't look fun. Y'all just running into shit.
Well,
That's
that's
so
why
funny.
whenever I talk to Mike or whenever I talk to Karen, I use the phrase differently. So if they're like, "Oh, how did you learn to lift weights?" With Karen, I'm like, "It's just like riding a bike. I didn't start until much later in life."
It's
And with
really
Mike,
complicated. Yeah.
yeah. And if Mike's like, "Oh, have you ever, what's it like murdering somebody?" I was like, "It's like riding a bike. I've never done it."
Exactly.
Don't even really want to learn how. It's too late to really be learning that kind of shit.
Rod, what one of your gifts is being able to turn on or off the meaning of riding a bike. Like some people, they're locked in. They're like, I know what it means, just like an elephant. I never forget. But look, I think most elephants never learned how to ride a bike. Also, whoever in the comments pointed out my new haircut. It's true. This is my first podcast debut new haircut. Didn't get a haircut since last July. I got one a couple days ago. Have been going quite a while.
New haircut, who this?
It's Myq
Exactly.
Hey.
It's Groucho. Hello. Yeah.
Well, it looks great, man.
Yes, I
Thank you.
absolutely love it. I do.
Oh man. I love you guys, and I also love that whenever you hear the phrase, Karen, like it's just like riding a bike. You're like, yes, of course, causing great damage to yourself, like my cousins, riding into all manner of physical objects.
Yes, eventually you figured it out, but I'm assuming it was hard to get there.
I'm on heroin. I'm a functional heroin addict. It's just like riding a bike. First you start off and you injure yourself, but eventually you figure it out.
Yes.
Sometimes you die. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That happens a lot on bikes.
Yeah, that does.
Normally the people that don't know how to ride them.
Yes.
Gotta be careful. Myq, man, what you been up to, dude? This feels like last time we talked to you, I want to say you were going you were going to overseas to do a festival.
Yeah.
Where you did your show, and then it was like you were gonna come back to New York, but you weren't gonna live in the same place anymore because like that was happening.
Flooded.
So where are you living now, and how's things going?
Thank you so much. It's just like riding a bike. Who knows where it is? That's the name of your episode, obviously. What does it mean to you? X marks the bike spot. So yes, last summer we must have talked. Rini and I, we had moved out of our Brooklyn home because we had to the beginning of June, and then did not have a home until the beginning of November, really. So 5 months we were home free, traveling for comedy a lot. And then for 1 month we stayed at my mom's while she was out of town. She has a place in Florida, and so we stayed in her home in New Jersey. But after that point, we were like, it's nice to have a home. Rini in particular grew up moving around a lot, and so values, look, I don't know what you're like, but she likes a home and stability. And I'm like,
it's so weird because people always say home is where the heart is, but it's honestly it's where the property and your stuff is normally. It's
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah, the heart kind of travels.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
I
does.
say, yeah, heart is where the home is, like this is where Rini lives, like that's the important stuff. But yeah, like, hey, do you have a key that I can use to close up my belongings so that when I come back they're still there? That's where the home is. But yeah, Rini, the homie, is here in the hearty heart.
That's his
So
home girl.
yeah, that she is my home girl. Absolutely. So we went to, among other places, the longest stay we had was in Edinburgh, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, all of August last year, where I performed the show that is now called Before We Get Started, previously known as Imperfect. But before we got started calling it Before We Get Started, we called it something else that was not as perfect, Imperfect. So, and that show, we are now this August going to be filming as a special in New York City on August 22nd. So everyone, whenever you're listening, if it's before that, quick, get to New York. I'm excited, super excited to do it. Rini and I have been working on this show for, we've been together for about 8 years. Oh, wow. In 2 days, it'll be 8 years.
Wow.
And
I mean,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'll take your pre-grats. And and so we shared the show there, and now are excited to get it on tape and in tape. Like that's how you tape things. Somebody's going to be, I think, physically drawing it on a cave wall is where it'll be, and and somebody then you just move back and forth and it looks animated.
You can have the first ever special that is done by a courtroom sketch artist. No one's done that.
I love
yet.
it. Or a caricature artist as well. So just me with a gigantic head, tiny hands, little violin. But yeah, so from August to August, we've been getting that show ready. And like I said, we found the place that I'm in right now, our home in Chelsea, the neighborhood of Chelsea in New York, more specifically Hudson Yards, right near the High Line. I don't know if you have ever walked the High Line. It's a lovely,
I've seen it before.
Yeah, it's a thin vertical park that goes from 14th Street to 30 something. It's a couple miles long. It's beautiful.
Wow,
I walk it frequently. There's a Whole Foods at the end of it, so it's perfect to spend all my money. And I've been living here we've been in Manhattan, and so I've been mostly walking to most of my shows in Manhattan. It's pretty great. And then if I have to go to Queens or Brooklyn, trains are we live right near Penn Station and Madison Square Garden. So if anyone ever cancels a gig at the Garden, I'm available. If the booker is like, hey, Taylor Swift can't make it, so just if you want to fill in, I think it'll be, to my mom. When my mom first started listening to Taylor Swift a couple years ago, my mom is a classically trained musician, listened to Billy Joel and John Denver growing up, but then also mainly, variously Bach, Beethoven, and such. Classical, Baroque, Romantic, hundreds of years old stuff, but she started listening to Taylor Swift pretty recently. And I don't know if you remember, but I was a musician and am a musician, for most of my life. I've written songs and my mom loves my songs. And when she listened to Taylor Swift for the first time, what she said to me, she said, Taylor Swift's music reminds me of yours. So if the audience of Swifties is like my mom, then I would be a perfect replacement for Taylor Swift at Madison Square Garden. Let's start a hashtag.
They love her hard. So
Actually, I think if they do that, that's going to be Mad at Sun Square Garden.
Wow.
They're gonna be
Rod,
mad at
that was 100% Mad at Sun Square Garden. No notes. I'm gonna use that's gonna be my opener at Mad at Sun Square Garden. That'll endear them to me. Also, Rini and I have been watching. We're almost to the end of the second season of The Bear. Y'all watch The Bear?
I watched the first season, but not the second yet.
Oh my God! I don't know if you're exactly like me, and I assume that you are in every way, but we watched the first season a year ago, and we're like, this is good, right? It's good, but some of it's a little intense, and it's not Rini made this point about the episodes that we watched in the past week. Each one, we usually binge through a bunch we watch a season in 2 days sometimes. But for these, she's like, each one is like a really rich meal that might take a week to process, to be like,
Yes.
but also the second season, like it's been a long time since we watched the first season. The second season, there's like at least half of the episodes are like heartfelt, sweet, beautiful,
Oh.
endearing character pieces that like do something completely different than the first season was doing. Like with the same, like the first season was like a setup for this beautiful follow through. So I really recommend the second season. I mean, start with the first season, but the second season, God, there's some episodes. Yeah.
I think that might be why it took me, why I haven't started the second season, is because the first season is so intense, and I was taking a break after every episode because it'd be and also I worked in the food industry, and so it was very like triggering because it is like that back there. I know it's
coming in the back of the house.
like some of the way people talk to each other and people's issues that they bring from outside, inside, and I was like, and then it's in the comedy category, but it's like not funny. It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a lot.
It's like life, you know, like some people are like, life is funny. And you're like, yeah, there's sometimes that life does other things too. And I feel like Alan Moore, the comic genius writer, once said something, or maybe it was Neil Gaiman, some great comic writer who's brilliant, said something about like life is like every genre. Like there's comedy, there's horror, there's drama, there's romance, sometimes there's porn, you know, like whatever it is, if you're lucky. But yeah, The Bear second season, like definitely there may be some episodes that you might need a break after. Like there's one that like Bob Odenkirk and Mulaney are in, and it's one of the longest, and it's just a Christmas dinner. But like the characters in the season, like they grow and change in dramatic and meaningful ways. So like I'm excited for you to watch.
Yeah. Can't wait to watch
Bear.
it. And that's the other thing they were good at too, is having amazing guest stars come in and do like, you know, this 30-minute TV show. And so you just look up and like John Bernthal's in it, and you're just like, wait, what? Did I miss something? And it's like, oh, he's gonna stay the whole episode? What is this? And so like that's definitely like the big joker that they have over there. You did mention you're working on a show.
Yes.
And it's called Before We Get Started. And you also mentioned that in 2 days it'll be the 8th anniversary of being with your girlfriend, Remy. I want to make sure I said it right.
Rini. Yes.
Remy, sorry. So I gotta ask you about this show and what it's about, and also when are you and Rini gonna finally get married, man? It's been 8 years.
Ha ha ha. Well, I'm glad that you asked the question, because Rod, the show is about what the fuck you just said. Like 100%. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but
no spoilers. Alert.
It is about my relationship with Rini and the growth. Like, so it was originally called Imperfect because it was more about, the focus was on like me and like my improvement in life as, you know, as a comedian, as a boyfriend, as a human being. And like, it is still about that, but the more I've been with Rini and like the more like it has been co-created by us. Like she has, some of the things that are in it are literally just, she said a thing and I'm like, I will now say that. And some of them I say she says it. Some of them are just like, you know, it's both of us. And so the more that we've been working on it, like the more it has sort of shifted and morphed into being a show about like, you know, the growth and manifestation of our togetherness and our relationship, and the fact that, you know, essentially, you know, behind the scenes, like we're together as forever as possible. You know, we are planning not to die because it would be very sad if one of us died. Or, you know, we remain open to the idea that, you know, maybe once we're 100, 1,000, whatever, when we've lived as much as we think is good, then we will be like at once, like not like a murder suicide, but we'll be like, and we're out, you know, just at the same time, clock out, because that's the only thing that would be super fair, because it'd be very unfair for one of us to go without the other. So deep and powerful. I don't know if you guys have ever had a love like that, but yeah, so that's the show is about, mainly about our relationship. It's also about, philosophy and quantum physics and
Of course.
Nintendo. It's a good bit about Nintendo and psychedelics and just learning lessons in life. But yeah, that's what it is.
And when is this again?
Filming in New York City, August 22nd.
August 22nd. So make sure y'all are there. We have a lot of fans in New York. I can vouch for Myq, seen him in person doing stand up. Amazing energy.
Thank you.
So funny. It's so crazy because like his brain is just like going 100 miles an hour, and part of you feels like your brain can't catch up, but your brain does catch up, and then you're laughing and you're catching up, but you're also never fully ahead of any joke, and it feels like it's never gonna stop, and you're just laughing, and it's like you got to try to catch your breath between laughs. He's just so funny, man, and I know this show is gonna be great. And if you've ever listened to his stand-up specials, because they're out there too already, you can go check out his old specials too, so you can be like, okay, yeah, this dude's got it, because just it's very funny but also relatable, and very unique. I don't think there's any other comedic voice out there that reminds me of you, man.
No, it's
That's
not. It's
so
it's very
sweet.
unique.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. And it's great to get the opportunity to record it, because then people can pause it or slow it down or listen back multiple times. Like if you're in the room and you're like, why is everybody laughing? Great question. And also, both of you are, I feel like, look, the kind things that you say about me, both of you, Rini shared with me once, I don't know where this came from originally. She said, somebody wise, some genius is like, we see the world not as it is, but as we are. So anything you see in someone else, you think someone's an asshole, that's kind of an asshole thing to do, right? I'm like, that guy's an asshole, you're an asshole, obviously. A little bit, just a little bit, not saying it's there, but to be able to see someone as an asshole, it takes an asshole to see an asshole. It takes a thief to catch a thief. You know what I mean? That's what police say, and that's why they're criminals. And you, Rod, like, for you to see my brain as fast from the person who just came up immediately with Mad at Sun Square Garden, I appreciate it. And to the questioners in the chat saying, when can we start buying tickets? They are available on Eventbrite through my website. If you go to, my website's the best place to find them, or just search Eventbrite and find my show on August 22nd. And if you, the tickets are like $10 plus fees. But also, if you want to come and, that's tough for you, I have a limited guest list as well. And I want anyone who really wants to be there to be there. I love that Maria Bamford, a gigantic star, one of my favorite human beings and comedians, she, fills theaters and always offers people, like, if you really want to come and you can't afford it, let me know, and I want you to be there. And I follow in her footsteps. I like, especially anytime that I'm in charge and can get people on a guest list, I can. So if you can afford it, if you're richer than me, then give me your money. But if you don't, if you're not, if you can't, 100% your attention, your time, your presence is invited and welcome. But yeah, Eventbrite, my website.
We do a similar thing with our live show. Is we have it where, because some people attend virtually, which we always try to make sure we have that option. And then the people that attend in person, sometimes people want to buy an in-person ticket, which costs more, but they can't make it.
Yeah.
And so we just started like a thing of
donate them. Yeah.
If you want to send us your PDF file or whatever, and you want us to give it away to a person who's in the area but can't afford it, or like, we'll do that. We've been doing that for like 3 or 4 years, and it is really cool. And also, it like really brings out the community in folks, because like, it ends up being a community, because it's like, I'm looking out for this person because I can't afford to buy the ticket. So yeah, that's a really cool thing that you and Maria Bamford both do. Also, you were talking about you were on Keith and the Girl the other day, and I was listening to that, and Keith brought up the phrase minimum wage, and I came up with that phrase, And I thought it was a high compliment to me that you thought it was funny, it was clever, because I was like, yes, if Myq, I knew it was clever, but the Myq Kaplan seal of approval means a lot to me on these puns. It was, and it's an idea I had for years,
Oh,
to the
it's so
point
good.
where
Yeah.
we almost, there was a I guess contest, I don't know what we call it, but
Mhm.
the local NPR radio station here was like, we're gonna get in like, we want a new idea for a new show,
Mhm.
and they want you to submit your idea. And I thought about submitting this, but honestly I was worried that it'd be the kind of thing where you submit it and they can still take your idea and use other people and do it themselves, because
Yes.
that paperwork is really weird. We're like, oh, you gave us the
Mhm.
idea, but we don't actually want to use your idea. You can't use your idea though,
Right.
because
So
you
you
told us about your idea.
yeah.
So I never told it to him, and I just kind of kicked it around and kicked it around, and now I'm doing it over with Keith and the girl, and so Keith read one of those type of stories and brought it up, and at first they just talked about the story, and I was like, oh, maybe Myq didn't like the pun, and then Myq stopped at the end and was like, hey, did you come up with that? That was good. I was like, I came up with that. The kid's like, oh, actually my buddy Rod came up with it. I was like, yes, I did come up with that. So
Yeah. Well, can I tell you, number one, the thing that's great about it, which you probably know, but like the thing that people I think don't like about wordplay when they don't like it is, I mean, there's a few different things. One is that maybe they've heard this joke a million times because it's right there and their dad said it and they have, they don't like their dad. And the other thing is, so if it's easy, if it's been done before, the other thing is like, if you think somebody's communicating something real to you, and then at the end it is only for a joke, they're like, you lied to me. I was listening to you. They're like, I thought that this comedy was going to be like a heartfelt story, brutal honesty, like self-reflection. And then like, what is even real about you? You tricked me. That is another thing people don't like about it. But what's beautiful about like one of my favorite word plays that I heard, I don't know where it originated, but I saw it in the movie The 25th Hour with Ed Norton. It was champagne for my real friends and real pain for my sham friends. And like the beautiful thing about that and Minimum Rage is that it's like, it's simple, elegant, and like if you've never heard it before, it's new, it's innovative, it's creative, and most importantly, it means something. It means something like real. It's not only, I mean, look, jokes are great. If something's only a joke and you know it's only a joke and the joke is the joke and you love a joke, wonderful. And if the joke can have something deeper, then even better. Can I tell you one more thing about a moment where I was you, Rod, and I was proud of a wordplay that I made, and where you are happy to get my seal of approval, I got a seal of approval from Dan Savage, who is one of my favorite human beings, podcasters, advice columnists, and he on his show at one point, or in his somewhere in the Savage Love universe, somebody asked the question, so when a man is married but has a partner on the side, they call her a mistress, but there isn't historically a word like that for what if a woman is married and she has a partner on the side who's a man, in this heteronormative setup, right? If there's and it doesn't have to be, but so they're like, okay, so a woman cheating is a mistress. What is a man cheating? And I was like, well, there's mom and dad, so there's mistress and distress. It's a distress. And Dan was like, man, I wish I had thought of that. And I was like, that's all I need. I meant
that seal of approval. I know we also covered recently that he came up with the phrase Tolyamory, when people tolerate someone cheating, and I read it on the show, and Karen's like, that's just cheating, and I was like, yeah, but
well, let me so Dan is famous for neologisms, coining new words and phrases over the years. Like, you guys know, have you heard of Santorum, either the substance or the political figure?
Okay, yes.
Yes, but for the purpose of this conversation, for the conference. No. So you can explain to the
For the listener, for anyone out there who might not have known, like about 20 years ago, when Rick Santorum was first coming to power in Congress and becoming like a presidential candidate, he was very anti-gay, very anti marginalized communities, and as such, as a homophobic politician, Dan was like, we should try to make it so that when you search his name, something he doesn't like will come up instead. And so he like put it out to his readers. What do we want Santorum to mean? And he made it so that somebody, I think the winning answer was the frothy mix of lube and fecal matter that is sometimes a byproduct of anal sex. And when you do it wrong. And so now, yes, in the comments, he's also anti-abortion, anti-knowledge, absolutely. And so they did it. They got that to like trend. And now if you search Santorum, you will find things about Rick Santorum. You will also find that. So he also did a similar thing with, I think, a place called the Saddleback Church, which was a homophobic church. And he's like, what is saddlebacking? And I think they came up with the idea of saying, like, how sometimes religious people of a certain type of religion will be like, we're not allowed to have vaginal intercourse before marriage, but we will have anal sex because God doesn't care about that. And he's like, so that'll be saddlebacking. I think that was what they came up with for that.
That's hilarious.
I think Dan Savage coined the term pegging. I think pegging, the term didn't exist. I think that was a Savage Love original debut. And so, and Tolyamory is his most recent offering, which is specifically, just to get it out there, it's that there are, so previously he came up with the idea of a PUD, which he calls polyamorous under duress, which is that sometimes you have two people in a monogamous relationship. Maybe one of them wants to open it. The other person loves the person, so they'll give it a shot. They'll be like, okay, like, they consent to it, but they do it. It wasn't their idea, so they're doing it begrudgingly, but then hopefully they come to love it. Like if you had a kinky partner and they're like, I want to be tied up, and you're like, well, I don't want to tie people up, but I love you. So, and it doesn't hurt anyone for me to, you want me to do it. It helps you. You feel good. And so Dan always says that if you go to a kink event, you find two types of people. One who knew they were kinky from when they were 3, and then the people who fell in love with those people, and then also fell in love with, the lifestyle that they have together. And so for polyamory, there are people who have become, ethically non-monogamous or polyamorous, or brought that openness into their life in some way because of the person that they loved, not because it was their original choice. And so polyamory is a further, I feel like the tweak to that, he says, is sometimes there's a couple that's together and they know that one of them is stepping outside of the monogamous bonds of their relationship, and they are okay, they are tolerating it. And it is, I think, Karen, you're right, there is a spectrum of, out and out cheating, like, which is a betrayal, and if people knew about it, they would
rules, right?
They would like leave or be mad or be very upset, as opposed to like, maybe, I don't know, the French model where people are like, look, we know it's happening. It's a part of it. It's okay. Like, like, people have their eyes open, or like with Dan sometimes talks about porn in like in relationships where, let's say it's a man and a woman, and there's an agreement where, they obviously some couples watch porn together. Some women are very into porn. Some men aren't as much into porn, though scientifically those men have not really ever been found in large quantities. But they tried to do a study years ago. I had a joke about it. But there are some sort of like don't ask, don't tell agreements that people sort of, either opt into or default into, where it works for them, where the guy pretends that he doesn't watch porn and is careful to not, to cover his tracks so that it doesn't get in the way. And the woman is, she'll pretend to believe him that he doesn't watch porn. And like, as long as their sex life is good, as long as their relationship is working order, then they don't, there's, people have a zone of privacy that, you don't have to tell each other every time you do something in the shower or the bathroom, or, something that can be your own private, independent, individual business. And, you get that you each have that, and you share the important things. So yeah, polyamory, long story longer, is Dan's latest word for people who have come to be polyamorous, to tolerate polyamory in their relationship in a way that some people might view as cheating, but is not quite that far, according to either them or some people.
I think what was funny about the description was, at least the article we read, it was like non-consensual.
Right. So I
Was
was
one of,
like,
and it was like, well, if
well,
it's
this is not an agreement.
there's a like that's one of those things where I'm like, there's a lot of people in open relationships that's just open on one side and they don't know about it.
Right.
It's like, which is just like another cheating joke or whatever. But like, I understood what he was trying to say, which is essentially like it's like when you watch The Sopranos or something, and you're like, she clearly knows he steps out and has just decided that this is just the life she's gonna have, and but
Yeah.
because they had never spoke about it and it wasn't like an agreement, it's always like a fine line, because that person can always at some point be like, I'm not okay with you cheating on me, all that you've been fucking all these people, and since we didn't have a conversation and I didn't say it was okay, I just kind of just didn't I didn't act like it wasn't okay. But the point being, like, this, I'm not, now it's just cheating because we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, here's an interesting component to it that I think that's 100% I agree with you completely. The weird thing about it is it's an identity that the people who are experiencing it wouldn't like label themselves with, right? Like they wouldn't have a conversation about how, hey, we're polyamorous, right? And that's like, as in my own relationship and in my life in general, in all of my, relationships, whether romantic or otherwise, like I value open communication. Like I've been in like open relationships that were varying degrees of like don't ask, don't tell. If like it was a long distance thing, like, look, you're over there, I'm over here, do what you got to do what you want to do, and we do our thing. But definitely my preference after experiencing monogamy and now having been in this relationship, which is monogamous for the bulk of it, many years, I love I like to think this about my relationship. There's a Lenny Bruce quote that I like a lot where he says, I'm not a comedian, I'm Lenny Bruce. And that's beautiful because like ultimately when you're in comedy or in music, like to defy categorization, to be like, what's that like? It's not like anything else. Like, what is Reggie Watts? He is just Reggie Watts. Like, what is Bo Burnham? Sure, he's a musician. Sure, he's a performance artist, but you don't get what he is unless you experience directly who he is. And so I'm like, we are monogamous, but I'm like, we're not a kind of relationship. We are Myq and Rini. We are this set of beings. And so I love that our relationship is, as openly communicative as it is. And that's just, it feels good to know what the truth is, to share what the truth is, to discuss, is the truth, is it still the same as it was today? Because, our relationship has gone through many incarnations since we first met 8 years minus 2 days ago. And and it's wonderful. And I would recommend that for anyone. But for out there are people who communicate less or communicate differently or aren't as verbal. And if your thing is working for you, like I think Dan Savage also really likes White Lotus. Have you guys watched White Lotus?
I haven't watched it, but I know of it.
Yet.
There's like in the second season a relationship that he views as like, he's like, it's healthy in a like they're doing a thing that works for them. It's not on paper what most people who want like a monogamous, heteronormative relationship looks like, but sometimes monogamous relationships don't work the way that people want them to on paper.
I completely agree. It's one of the reasons why, like, we've been together at this point, like, what, 20 years.
What?
So
somewhere in there,
something like that. Yeah, 16. We've been married since 2002. We've been dating since we were 16, right? Mm-hmm. And what's so funny about that is that people will occasionally write in and go, hey, can you guys do like a relationship advice segment? Can you give some relationship advice and all this stuff? And I'm not saying that, there's nothing of value that we have to share about relationships. Obviously, a lot of people do.
Right.
But I've never wanted to do that because I so totally do believe in the principle of each single relationship is unique.
Yes.
And it's unique between those two people or
Mhm.
three people or whatever they're doing. And also, in addition to each relationship kind of being unique, I know there's tent poles of things, but like communication is a tent pole for me. But what you communicate is up to you. So like your communication style might be different than me. So I'm like, oh, sit down and have this kind of a talk, and you could be like, she hates those talks, or I remember we got married at the Justice of Peace,
Mhm.
and occasionally someone will write in and be like, Rod, how'd you convince Karen to get married at Justice of Peace? And
What
I'm
they
like,
really say is how you tricked her.
yeah, and what I want to tell him, what I always tell him is like, well, she first of all, you have to meet a woman that already wants to get married to Justice of Peace,
Right.
because like that helped a lot since I didn't do any convincing. It wasn't a talk or a discussion of like, hey, please, I know you want to get married in this chapel, and so, but there's nothing I could say to that person to convince. What I always end up saying is, do you have a person that wants to get married at a chapel or something? I would consider doing that because that's what I would have done if I was dating Karen and she was like, I'm a chapel person. Then I guess we have to
Right.
get a chapel. And so it is very unique. And so I definitely believe in that. And, what works for people, I always say, like, love doesn't love anything but itself.
Right.
So what it, like, whatever it takes to keep that love going is what people's love normally does. And it's not always good, or
Mm-mm.
it's not always good either. Like I've
Nope.
watched um some true crime stories where you're like, oh yeah, my love hopefully would stop before we're burying a body together. That seems like
Yeah.
not a good thing. But when they interview these people, when they're confessing to the crime or police are talking to them, some of them are even like in prison, and it's like,
Mhm.
you need to. We've already caught you. The every like you can do less time if you would just cooperate with us. And
Yeah,
the person
like,
who
nope.
did the murder, they're going away for a long time. And they'll even be like, I'll go away for a long time. I don't care.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that is how like love is like this most powerful, scary thing to me. Where it's like it's beautiful, it's great, you'll jump in front of a bullet for somebody, and that sounds awesome. But also, you might shoot a bullet for somebody, which isn't as awesome. But
Yes.
it's the fact that it whatever it takes to propagate itself is what it does. And so I don't necessarily have the greatest advice because I don't know what the fuck your love is
It
gonna do, and you're asking me to know you and your relationship in a way I can't.
right.
So I'm very kind of hand-offish with that. Nothing's wrong with advice.
Mm-mm.
It's just I've always. You see how far my brain just went. I can't answer your question about
Yeah.
chapel.
Yeah, and also what I realized too, and as somebody and different people have different life experiences. A lot of people go into relationships with baggage,
All right, it's like
abuse from
riding a bike.
childhood. Yeah, yeah, yes, a lot of damage, a lot of running into buildings, a lot of crashing, a lot of breaking the bones.
Well, that's learning the bike for you.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So, for me, like Roger says, love only loves itself, and love evolves as you evolve. And a lot of people don't understand that it changes as you change. It gets deeper as and it strengthens, according to you, because
Yeah.
it's patient, it's kind, it's gentle, it's loving, it's jealous. It could be a
Sometimes
lot of
it's not.
things.
It's not. It's. I always say you're not with the person you were with the day y'all met. You just
Mm-mm.
every day you're with like a new person. It's like if every day you woke up and it was like all the memories uploaded, new rod loading volume 45 years plus this
No,
many days.
I hope you are not the same
Man.
person. Like, no, please grow and evolve.
Yeah.
Can I tell y'all 17 things about what you just said? Number one, I agree. I love that love only loves itself. It's beautiful. And it reminds me of my friend Gus shared with me. He loves Victor Hugo. And Victor Hugo said, Gus shared this with me once in an email. He said, Victor Hugo said that God lives inside every person, and to love a person is to render them invisible. So that
Mm.
it's really just, seeing like the love in you, seeing the love in them, and like all the clouds of the rest of, human nonsense kind of
Mm.
just melts away. So that's number, 1 through 7. The second thing, or whatever it is, I love that you said, you got married in front of a justice of the peace. The only thing is, it's weird. Like, I've always heard people say, "No justice, no peace." So how did you get that to happen?
Right.
Um,
And it's been a
and
pretty peaceful marriage.
It has.
and
Yes.
it reminds me, when I was long ago an open relationship person. I remember I would go on a lot of podcasts and talk about open relationships, and I remember I went on one, and there was a guy, an older comedian who was married, and he's like, I feel like a classic response to open relationships from like a, a certain kind of guy, a certain kind of straight guy. He's like, wow, how do I talk my wife into, how do I get my wife to, sign up for that? And at the time, I, just joked. I was like, well, I mean, if you want me to go out with your wife, I'm happy to. If that's what you're saying. The main thing though, that so here's two stories where I'm agreeing with you. One from my own life and one from a cool scientist I follow, about how you don't want to give people advice about relationships because your advice might not be right for them. In fact, bonus extra thing, I was just answering a question in an email. So here's 3 more things. This is it. 3 things and only then 17 more things. But so you guys know Doug Stanhope,
Yes.
one of my favorite comedians. He said that when he was starting out at an open mic, an older open micer saw him giving advice to someone, and that guy's name was Joey Scazzola or something. And that guy said, never give anyone advice because you're only telling them how to be more like you. And like, maybe they want to be like you, and that's great, and I'm not saying that advice is never like the best thing to do. If somebody's asking you for advice, you can give them what you think could be helpful, with disclaimers like, obviously circumstances, and context may change. Because the other thing is that here's number 2 of the final 3. Sometimes, like, I'll ask a wait person at a restaurant, be like, what's good here? Like, or what do you like? And they'll be like, oh, I love this. And then, but then if you go a step further, be like, why do you love it? And they're like, I love olives and prunes. And this is the olive drenched prune, I'm like, oh, well, then we're different, and I will get a different thing. And finally, there's this scientist I follow on Substack, named Adam Mastroianni. And he shared this thing. I'll just read a brief snippet. He says, what does it feel like to really be in love with someone? Listening to 1,000 love songs is not the same as being in love. Neither is reading about oxytocin or surveying a nationally representative sample of couples. No one can explain it to you. And even if they could only explain what it's like for them to love their partner, but they can't explain what it'll be like for you to love yours. It's like someone going to see Mission Impossible and explaining the plot to you as if every movie is Mission Impossible. You'll love the part where Tom Cruise jumps out of a helicopter, they explain confidently as you head off to see Steel Magnolias. Sorry, pal, you can't IMDb this one. This woo is straight up irreducible.
I love that. I love that.
That's adorable. And what I've realized over the years, one of the biggest reasons why I don't give advice, because most people don't listen to it anyway, and they just want to use you as an scapegoat. So yeah, so something.
No,
you know who is the scapegoat is Houdini. He is the scapegoat. 100%. You're on it, Karen.
Julian Assange just gave up the title. He was in the contention.
Oh, and if I only did 16, here's one more. My friend Renata, one of my dearest, oldest friends from the Boston comedy scene, a mysterious angel in this world. She once told me that she was at an office job, and she had dreams of having an artistic life. And she was telling someone she worked with about it. And the other person was like, you know what you should do? And Renata is the kindest person. So I don't think she said this to that person, but to me, in the safety of our friendship, and I share with you, she said something very kindly along the lines of like, oh, I don't need advice from you because you're where I am. I would like advice, if I want advice, from people who are where I want to be. So
yeah,
with respect to that, like, I think it makes sense that people ask you, they're like, you clearly have something. What it like, How do you do it? What is going on with you? And then you can share, all your, like, this is how Tom
Yeah.
Cruise jumps out of the airplane or the helicopter or from a building to a building. And maybe your love is Fast and
And,
Furious.
I,
Maybe
and
your love,
honestly,
yeah.
and honestly, sometimes, that I know it's worked for me sometimes where like someone said something and it made something click for me that, maybe I didn't go out and try to live their lives, but they gave me advice or they said something and it just stuck with me forever.
Yes.
A lot, sometimes they don't even know it. I remember I was like 17, 16 or something. And, my best friend at the time, Rashida, was dating this guy that I thought was kind of like a loser or beneath her, but I was like, yeah, we're 17 and we're in college. You can kind of do what you want to do. It's not like, you never, it's not the end of the world. But I remember asking her, I was like, do you love him? Because he's kind of like a guy that you kind of like don't, you kind of talk down about him like you don't like him, but then I'm a mad like, and she's like, no, I do like him. I'm like, okay, but do you love him? And she said, I love him for what I know love to be. And I said, God damn, that is the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. What the fuck is wrong with you, Rashida? I thought you were smart. And then 10 years later, I was thinking about it. And I was like, fuck, that is the only way people can love people.
Mm-hmm.
That is the smartest thing I've ever heard in my life. She's a genius. By then we weren't friends anymore because that dude was weird and didn't want us to be friends. He didn't like female friendships.
And the thing is, I even miss Rashida. As wild as that may sound, like he was her best friend, and I miss her. I was like, oh, I miss her so.
She's the first person.
The best.
We invented. As far as I know, it's before the internet. I didn't check the dates, but I believe we invented tag team Miss Pac-Man. Mm-hmm. We went to the arcade, and you switch off after each level or each life, and we were so ridiculous. We were in this arcade, and we were like running around yelling and stuff, it's like go watch over blue, what the fuck, and it's like you died, okay, move, switch, and then like switch. Everybody's like, that is fucking fun. That's how you play some Miss Pac-Man over there. I guess you could do that with any of those arcade games. Now I do want to talk about other things that you might, because news has happened.
Oh, of course. Also, just real quick, have you ever played the 4-person Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man?
Not yet, but sounds like I'm gonna be.
It's cool. Yeah. We'll talk about that next time when it's the news. Yeah.
We played a video game the other day that wasn't even in English.
Oh yeah. I guess. All right. So there's a what do you call those things? I want to say food court, but it's not really that. It's a big building where there's a bunch of restaurants in it.
Yes.
It's Asian themed. It's in a place called Super G Mart. Mm-hmm. And you go in and there's like just tons and tons and tons of restaurants and you like food hall. That's what they're called. Yes. Damn. How did I not know that? It's a hall of food. And so you can order from the different places, you sit down, eat or whatever. But they also had like a small arcade with tokens and stuff. And so I was like, I'll get a token. I got $1. We'll spend it on a game. And we played some fucking game. It's just 3 big ass buttons. Like the buttons. The buttons are the size of your hand.
Yeah, I think they were yellow, blue, and red or something.
They're different
like
colors.
Yes.
There's 3 joysticks, and then it's not in English. You put the token in. You hit. It's like, hey, you pick your character. Like you can make out certain things just because you played video games before. So it's like, oh, I must be picking my character now. And then the next person, they can pick their character. And if you have a third person, they can pick a character too. And then the game starts, and no game is the same.
Nope.
And
every round is different.
It's random games. They all use the buttons, but the buttons in different ways.
Yes.
Nothing was in English, so we're just guessing.
Yes.
Like there's one where like they put a man's head on a seal, and then like different color food flies at the seal, and you have to hit the button to correspond with the food hitting the seal's head and eat it in the right order. Color. Yeah. And it has to be the right color of the food, or else you don't get that round. There was one where you have to like catch things falling. There's one where you have to juggle. It was so fun, but it was extremely confusing. And I don't know
in English.
I don't know how it came up, but it came up. All right.
Because you were talking about Pac-Man with Rashida and video games.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't know how we got that. Terrence got it. let's talk about some stuff in the world. There's a $16 Tokyo hotel deal where you $16 stay in this hotel. You get clean sheets,
Okay.
free coffee,
Okay.
but you have to stay with a stranger in your room.
Wow.
Mm-mm.
No
Ah,
complete, no on complete stranger, Karen. All right. What about you, Mike? Would you try it? Complete stranger, $16
I
hotel.
mean, you're not allowed to just go with a friend.
Doesn't sound like it. Seems like this is the
Ah,
hook.
it's like the
You got
chat
that.
roulette hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get like I'll say short answer no, long answer no. But like I mean it would depend on my circumstances financially, and if I needed to, I'd probably stay there more than on like are you in do you have two beds at least? That seems
It
uh
looked like one bed from the picture they showed.
yeah. Yeah, I don't
Maybe there's two. Well, nah, it looks like one bed. There,
And
if it's two beds, they're really smushed together.
yeah, and also it depends on the culture. Like for some places, it's I don't say culture like that, but a culture of like, hey, we around strangers type of thing. Like
Mm.
like and I know Keith talked about it. Them I don't want to say them things hostels.
Yeah, it's
He
like a yeah.
like for me, I'm like, oh fuck no, I don't want to be around these people. Like for
Mm.
me, mentally, I couldn't handle just being around them
Well,
strange
it's called
people.
the and hostel, AND
Okay.
hostel.
Hmm.
So I mean, I guess it kind of is a hostel.
Mhm.
I can't. Oh, this is just like that video game we played. I don't know how to
Mhm.
read this.
And for some people,
There you
like
go.
Mike said, it's cheap. And so for some people, they go, "Hey, it's $16 a night." Like, yeah, I might be with strangers, but at least I have somewhere to stay.
Yeah, I guess you gotta be
Yeah.
real, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, that's good compared to New York rent. That's good because
That's great.
that's like less than $500 a month.
a lot of people in New York are paying thousands and still living with a stranger they don't know.
Yes, they
Mm-hmm.
are.
You know, there's some Tolyamory people that are living with a stranger. They don't
Haha.
even.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't even know. And I mean, the only thing I would say is, yeah, it's. I guess it's probably I'm gonna stick to our place in New York because the commute would be a little harder because this is in Japan. Did you say? Yeah,
mhm.
Mhm.
yeah. So I wouldn't be able to make it to the clubs as quickly.
It's a 45-minute train ride from Shinjuku province, so I don't know if you can
Okay,
make.
okay.
Uh,
I'll
fif-
consider it.
a 15 a $15 million settlement was reached after doctors allegedly left heart surgeries to perform other operations. Yeah. So the doctors would, I guess, shout out to the whistleblower who came forward and brought up these three heart surgeons
Let me
violations.
tell you who is a nurse that's sitting there, because when they do this
Mm.
shit, they have like a staff.
Right.
So now the staff is waiting fucking 30 to 45 minutes for you to bring your ass back, and after a while they was like, I'm tired of this bullshit. We got to report him.
I wonder what the reason is, like to the surgeon. Like, is it I need to save the most lives, or is it like, ooh, I can get an extra couple thousand
I
dollars.
guarantee you, insurance and all that stuff.
I can
Yeah.
do a
Mhm.
rhinoplasty between this
Mhm.
guy's heart surgery.
Yep. Overbooking, double scheduling.
Man, the other day I was I have to park my car in Brooklyn now because we live in Manhattan and there's nowhere to leave the car for a long time here. And I was like, I think I have enough time to get to Brooklyn, find a spot where I can leave it for enough time, then zoom back into the city to get to my show. I texted the person. I'm like, I'm gonna be like 15 minutes after we said, is that gonna be okay? She's like, oh, we kind of have a hard out time. I was like, oh my God. Like if that was, and that's just, I'm a comedian, and that stressed me out. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not gonna do that again. I'm gonna do one, here's a mantra that I have taken to using recently. There's a book called After the Ecstasy, The Laundry. And it's by Jack Kornfield, a spiritual teacher that I really like. And he shared that when Henry David Thoreau was once asked, I might have shared this with y'all because I was sharing it with everyone when I first read it. When Thoreau was asked, what do you believe happens after we die? What happens after this life ends? And Thoreau's answer was, one world at a time. And so that's like really helpful to me. Like when I'm like brushing my teeth and thinking about everything else I've got to do, next day. I'm like, how about just toothbrush world for right now?
Right.
That's all I can do. Focus on that, be mindful on that. And so I'm like, one comedy show at a time, one surgery at a time. Man, we watched, Rini really likes, sort of like crime documentary type stuff. And then we watched I think Dr. Death was the name of the show on Peacock. There's like a couple seasons about just doctors that it's not clear whether they're some of them might be just sociopaths that are like, I'll do what I want to do. And they don't know how to do what they're doing at all. And they cause a lot of harm and kill people and maim people. And it seems like maybe they really believe in themselves, but they're just not they're harming people more. Like that thing that they say, they're like, first do no harm. They forgot about that one. And they're like, first, and these guys are like, yeah, first make a lot of money and then do more harm. And yeah.
And now they're being sued. There's 3 of them. There's 71-year-old Dr. Joseph Coselli, 63-year-old Dr. Joseph Lamalas, and 77-year-old Dr. David Ott. They say that they ran 2 operating rooms at once, delegating key aspects of extremely complicated heart surgeries to unqualified medical residents at St. Luke's. So I wonder, it does sound like it must have been a money thing, or maybe they were trying to say, no, this is how I teach the other.
No, this is not the time. No,
right. I don't want to be. Now, it's not like when you go get a haircut and you can go to the beautician school and it's like, oh, it's only $5 here, but a student will cut your hair and they may make a mistake. Yeah, but for heart surgery,
Yes. Oh, and it would not be surprising because a lot of times that stuff, I don't want to say it's timed, but they have like a time range.
Right.
And I guarantee you they were going over their time or something like that because they're going back and forth.
Well, when you lose the patient, do you send the untrained medical person to tell them, or do you go out and act like you did it yourself?
Right, because you have no idea what they fucked up because you didn't do it.
They're like, they died on the table, but I was trying to look on YouTube. I don't know what happened. My Wi-Fi went out, and now your grandmama ain't got no lungs,
Man, let's just a quick shout out to every once in a while, like mistakes happen, like medical mistakes happen. Doctors are human beings. Like it's good to try to, like minimize the mistakes as much as possible. And just so anyone out there, if you ever need like there's stories of like amputations happening to like the wrong body part. So like whenever you're going in for any kind of surgery, like I had a colonoscopy for the first time a couple weeks ago. And I was thinking about just writing with Sharpie on my legs, like, don't amputate these legs. You know what I mean? Just like truly like do
but
that.
What if you get a doctor that's not good at reading? Man, and he's like, you get donuts for amputating legs in this hospital? Well, I know a guy was getting 2 donuts today.
Double donut, double dipping.
Yeah, you got to have a good emoji game as well. It's got to be very clear. Yeah. Red light.
They said also that the surgeons, so I guess there's a moment in the surgery called a surgical timeout where they stop and assess all of the like risk and like dangers. Like, okay, like where are we at in the game plan? Is the heartbeat raising or falling? Is are we losing too much blood or whatever? And then you supposed to like after that, I guess it's like a halftime of a game. Then you finish up the surgery knowing like these are the things that we're dealing with that when we came in we didn't know, so his blood pressure is high. Okay, what do we need to do to get the blood pressure back down so we can finish the operation rather than just we'll just go through it anyway, right?
Okay.
The surgeons missed them because they weren't in the room because they were
and that's not funny. Depending on what kind of surgery you have, they have different things. Like when I had my partial hysterectomy, when they removed my ovaries, they say, hey, we're just letting you know if we get in there and we find some other stuff wrong, Like we might have to,
Right. So they might need a surgical timeout to
yeah,
do
and I
that.
didn't even think
Also,
about that. I was
I
like,
thought
that
you
makes
kept your
sense.
ovaries, but
I mean, not my
yeah,
uterus. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
When I had my uterus removed, they was like, "Hey, if we get in here and we look at your uterus and we realize stuff is doing other things, we might have to remove your ovaries." I was like, "Cool, do what you got to do. I'm
Right.
out."
But it's just
But
interesting that
but
they
but that's a meeting that they
also,
have.
but also you missed both of them because this was plural. So how are you running two operation rooms? It's one
Oh,
thing if it's like, oh, you missed one because you had to go to the other one, and that's what
you
you what did you just go to the other room like, fuck, it looks like it's about time for your surgical timeout. I'm gonna go where there's less stress. You got this, right?
Yeah, and it would not be surprising if, because hospitals are huge. One is at one wing, one is at another wing, one is at a different level. One, you know what I'm saying?
Who
Like
knows?
it, like all types of
I
shit
just
is
always assumed the
happening.
surgery wing was like the same, but fuck if I know.
There could be
I'm a,
different floors in
Yeah,
the same. Yeah,
what I
like
have,
there's
what the other thing I always assumed is that the doctor stayed the whole time. So that
I assumed that too.
what do I know,
well,
You know,
guys?
last
these
time I said it, I was told they stayed.
these are good questions. Two quick things. Number one, just on continuing the topic of right on your leg, do amputate this one for the one that you want amputated, and don't amputate this one. You could put a green light on the one to amputate because that'll be pretty good. Be like, it's like, oh, the gangrene light. You know what I mean? Like, look, this leg is green. Get rid of
Right.
it. Go green, go away. And here's just a quick comedy thing. I don't know who told me this, but when I was starting out doing comedy in Boston, I was told there's like a time when just comedy shows were like, rampant, like in the 80s, just shows popping up everywhere in like bowling alleys, every restaurant, every function hall possible. There was one, maybe a hotel that had two function rooms right across from each other, and they would have two comedy shows happening at the same time, but they would have the same two comedians, each one doing like a half hour or a 45-minute set. One of them comedian A would open in one room and then close the other room, while comedian B opening in the second room and closing the first room. So they had to coordinate to the minute to be like, good night, everybody. Now, please welcome to the stage this other person. And then they run across and then start doing the same show. And like, that's coordination that takes a lot of effort and meticulousness to make happen. And those are comedians, not doctors. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard. Imagine doing that with, okay, I got one game of operation going over here. I got another one going over here. It's buzzing. The guy's nose is going off, but you're in the other room. Yeah.
When it comes to my surgeons, I prefer quality over quantity.
Me too. And now they actually almost like if a police officer does something cruel, you're like, oh, now we got to go back and investigate everything. So now they got to go back and be like, did anybody die during a certain period of time? If they did, where were you? Were you doing your job? Are we gonna have more lawsuits now? Like now we have to go back and check.
Well, hopefully no one died because a lawsuit is a civil lawsuit. But yeah, that's wild. Speaking of police who enjoy hurting people, a cop punched people he pulled over and then shared photos with glee of those that he injured. Yeah.
I want to go out on a limb. I don't know what you guys think about this, but I'm anti. I don't like it.
Yeah. Not a fan.
This is, man, I forget. I just saw a quote that was talking about people who go into being the police, like, sometimes really are like criminally minded people, violent people that want an excuse. And it's surely not all there. I don't mean to be all like both sides about it. There probably are people who want to help, who believe it is noble, who they're good community. Of course, it's not only white people killing black people. There are black police officers, which is it's a real bananas situation out there, but there's violent people who want legality on their side to be able to do their violence.
Right. Yeah. And it's scary because it's kind of like Donald Glover said in this rap one time. He's like, what's a leader if he isn't reluctant, and it's something I do believe in. I was like, I do find the best leaders to be the reluctant ones. You know, if I was walking in a park and I needed a random person to look after my kid for a second, I actually want the person that does not want to look after my kid
Yeah,
for a
the
second.
person's like, oh,
It's like
kids.
give me the person who's like, I got shit to do, man. Come on. I'm like, you will take care of my kid. It's the person who's like, I'll take care of them kids.
No,
No, you're a little too eager.
I'm declining that offer.
And it feels like that with cops too, where it's like the people that are most like when people complain about the job of a cop, I understand it because I actually do think it's actually a really fucking hard, impossible job. I wouldn't want to do it for at all.
Nope.
But I wouldn't want anyone who wanted to do it doing it. I kind of only want people that kind of don't want to do it doing it, especially when it comes to this kind of part of the job. Like if it was someone
Right.
going, I just want to help kids cross the street to school. I'm like, okay, that's different. But if you're like, I want to crack down on those mean thugs, I'm like, oh, maybe not you. You watch too many Charlton Heston movies or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like that for like to be a parent as well, to be a politician, to be the president,
Right.
like anyone, like there's an old Brian Regan joke about Sully, you know, who landed the plane in the Hudson successfully, and they're like, "What a hero!" And they're like, "Do you think they're interviewing him?" And they're like, "Do you think that you're a hero?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'm just doing like what anyone would have tried to do." And they're like, "He's a hero. That's what it is. A hero knows. He says he's not a hero, so he is one." That's a wonderful
Right.
Brian Regan joke. And similarly, I really feel like if somebody's like, yeah, I mean, being a parent is like, God, it's so, how could you, like, it seems so arrogant, like to be like, I'm the person who's going to be in charge of another human life. Like, yeah, that's the person you want in charge of another human life. The person who's like, I don't know if I'd be good at being in charge of another human life.
I have no idea.
And so this guy, he apparently enjoyed doing this. He would target people smaller and weaker than himself before he punched and assaulted them during routine traffic stops. He's been sentenced to a little over 9 years in prison.
How many of these people have probably been complaining forever and they got fucking brushed off? They was
Yeah.
like, yeah, the officer punched me.
It's also got to be weird when he's like, you know why I pulled you over? And you're like, was I speeding? And it's like, no, because you're 4'11". And I like punching people who are smaller than me.
Right, but the thing is, you don't want your ass to be whooped, but then don't be beating up on other people.
They found him guilty of multiple charges, including 4 counts of violating constitutional rights, a single charge of conspiracy, and a single charge of falsifying records. He's 31. He was fired in 2021 after posting the identity of a confidential informant on Facebook upon discovering that the person had criticized him on social media. Well, maybe because you punched people in the face or for no reason.
And they probably have seen it.
He's like, yeah, you don't have to tweet about it. It should have been a DM that I could have pulled you over and punched you in the face. Come on.
Man, if you work with confidential informants who are often, I don't know, probably people who don't necessarily like, look, maybe there's very like completely law-abiding confidential informants who are just like, you know, good, like ethical whistleblowers. But like, if you're working with confidential informants, people who inform on other people, don't do illegal shit like that they know about. Like,
Right.
They was like, I will get arrested.
Also, like, that's not a very good confidential informant. Like they were kind of breaking protocol, tweeting about the stuff you want them to tell you in like the back of your patrol car, like what's happening. If they're tweeting about it, you could have just went to the police and been like, guys, he's not being very confident.
man.
Upon discovering that person criticized him, he first joined the sheriff's office in 2017 after working as a pizza delivery driver.
Man, sheriff's offices, like, I mean, I don't understand like all the levels of, there's like the state police, there's like federal authorities, then there's like local, like I see, you know, I watch a lot of like, I don't know, cop crime shows here and there, and every once in a while, like the sheriff and then the other police in the area are like butting heads, and they're like, this is our, and then they're like, oh, you're just like rival gangs? Is that what's going on here? And like, this is our turf. Yeah.
What's really funny about that is I never believe that. Like, it is a trope in every cop show and movie, but I always feel like a more realistic version is people showing up and being like, well, it's probably like your crime scene, right? Like, you guys want to work
Yeah, like
this.
that. They're trying to walk their way
More
out of.
work.
Y'all got it
Right.
right.
Like I don't know enough about being a cop, but I know a lot about work
And
and
paperwork.
things that have never happened at a job. Was that at least I would put it this way, things that happen more often at a job have normally resemble people being like, "You got this, right?"
Like we don't have to do this.
Yeah, it's like you're right. Probably all those shows are just propaganda, you know? And
Yeah.
also, like, am I right? I feel like sheriffs are sometimes elected, which is all. I
Right.
mean,
They
none
are.
of it's my favorite, you know, because
Right.
either they're appointed by some corrupt, you know,
Right.
politician or a billionaire mayor or whatever. Like, I'm like, yeah, none of it works. No thanks.
Yeah, but you're right. It is good propaganda though, because when I watch the TV show, it make me feel like that's what cops really do. Is to be like, no, the FBI is not taking my
Yeah.
case. I'm going to solve the murder.
Yes.
Fuck the FBI. The FBI is like, all we want to do is help you solve the murder, but you're in the way. You're off the case.
Yeah.
We're going to solve the murder twice as hard as
Yeah.
you, even faster.
Who is the
Yeah.
most dedicated to catching these criminals?
Yeah, but then in real life, it's like, hey, you should probably solve this murder on your own. You got
You-
it. I'm out.
You
Um,
know, yeah. Here's two quick things. One, I used to read like John Grisham legal thrillers, and I watched like David E. Kelly, like wonderful, you know, like Boston Legal and The Practice and Ally McBeal and like, you know, like legal TV shows. And I'm like, it's cool. Like in the courtroom, oh man, it's like dramatic and exciting. And I'm like, maybe I want to do that. And then I got a job like interning at a law firm, and it was a lot of making copies. So it's not as glamorous, you know, in the real life thing. The things you see on TV, it's like maybe that happens over the course of like 7 years. All that excitement happens in one case, and the rest of it is nonsense. But then also, man, the other oh yeah, like when you have nope, lost it. Okay, go on.
all right. Well, sorry. Here's some more stuff.
No, please hit it.
During the arrest of one person identified only as WW, the victim said that he had planned on fully cooperating with the police when Abbott pulled him over, but grew agitated when Abbott unnecessarily squeezed his testicles. It's like,
Yeah.
what? He just likes the torture of it. Maybe he's watched one too many dirty cop movies, and that's why he's a cop, is because he's like, cops always want to solve the crime. I know, because in the movies they torture people illegally and violate their civil rights. And then he was like, oh, I don't have any crimes to solve, but I do want to violate some civil rights.
Oh yeah. You know, here's in his defense. And I'm going to say this completely as a joke. Just to be clear, I do not defend this at all. Just want to get out ahead of it. Disclaimer delivered. And I did remember my thing from before. It's about the show 24. But in this guy's defense, he unnecessarily squeezed this guy's testicles. Maybe the doctor who was supposed to be there examining this guy's testicles was off in another courtroom or medical arena or, you know, wherever he was. And it's like, look,
that's how you got this guy.
Somebody's got to squeeze this guy's testicles. The doctor's not here. Do you guys
maybe
remember?
Maybe he thought it was like BDSM, but they didn't have a safe word or consent. So it was like Tolly BDSM.
Indeed. So the
24.
other thing, yeah, you remember when 24, like it was kind of a controversial thing for a while, like how much that show like glorified torture, and they like on the show torture worked, and that was the thing that they were like, look, there's a ticking bomb situation right now, you got to do everything that you can. Like, so the hero of this show was like, you know, sometimes murdering people, like sometimes murdering literal innocent people, sometimes torturing people.
Got on drugs and got off in 3 episodes.
Well, you gotta break a few eggs, Karen.
And I remember
watching every episode.
it was such an exciting show, but I think really like exemplary of like the damage that like that. I mean, look, I'm not saying like these kids in their video games making everyone violent. Like, it's, you know, art imitates life, imitates art. But I remember reading an article that like there were students at West Point that believed that torture worked because they watched that show, even in the face of empirical data that when you torture someone, they say what you want them to say because they want you to stop torturing them. Torture does not get you effective, accurate information. Don't torture people. It doesn't work. for real, but that's what's happening in all these shows. Like, it's glorifying, like, we love the show Reacher in our household, but like that's not like the idea of the hero who's like perfect on the show. The hero is good and right and knows everything that is going to happen, knows who the quote bad guys are, but even on that show he like harms people in ways that he does not have to harm people. And we're like, are people enjoying this, all of this? Like it's like he like breaks people's arms, and I'm like, I like dumb action.
Which is ironic because it's less traumatizing than a season of The Bear making food. Like, I can I can binge Reacher, but if they yell chef one more fucking time, I'm like, all right, I gotta take a time out. This could actually happen. But yeah, don't hit people, cops. The U.S. Olympic team and other teams will bring their own AC units to Paris, which undercuts the Paris Olympics environmental plan. So the Olympics
they plan on putting them in hot ass rooms or some shit.
Not just hot ass rooms. So there's a couple things happening here. They were gonna give them like fans and stuff. They want to be environmentally conscious and whatnot. And I don't think that's like a bad thing. I think that's a awesome goal. Now, why are you hosting the fucking Olympics? I don't know. I think there's probably no true economic way to offset the footprint of the fucking Olympics.
Yeah,
but this is kind of what we do. It's like the wood straws of like, hey guys, we all don't use plastic bags today. Then we save the environment. Like, but we go back tomorrow. Yeah, of course we go back tomorrow. That's crazy. But in addition to that, there's also this thing where they don't want them having sex.
That's
so their plan has been to give everyone twin beds because no one's ever had sex in a twin bed.
Have you ever seen
especially very athletic
on a college campus?
Especially very athletic, horned up people. They would never. And I think they aren't giving out as many condoms. So prepare for a generation of super babies.
Well, it's a weird thing because I was listening to Dan Savage's podcast recently, and he talked about this. Because it's kind of, there's some conflicting information that like in the 2020 Olympics, which I think happened in 2021, like there was an intimacy ban, but it was mainly for COVID. And so that ban has been lifted, and they are stocking the Olympic Village with, it says 300,000 condoms. So
so the condoms are back.
Yes, the condoms are back. But so I don't know, but they definitely, I mean, look, I think it's going to be a hot Olympic summer. That's all.
Yeah. And yeah, definitely. Cause they don't have any air conditioning unless you're in the United States. Then it'll be a cool.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, so maybe also this cuts back on some of the sex too.
Cause it's hot.
And y'all, your athletes, you're in tip top shape, but like sometimes it's like, yo, it's a little too hot to be having sex on this twin bed because the beds still are small. I wouldn't look that part up. Okay. I did that research. And so maybe they're like, it'll cut down the sex. Like this fan is not going to be enough.
But have you ever been around young people? Their energy level is off the chain. They don't
some things I'm saying are sarcastic.
I about to say young people don't care. They were like, fucking let's go. We don't care if it's 110 degrees.
But now we also have air conditioners. So I feel like the people with the air conditioners get the most sex. I feel like
they are. It's a luxury.
This is kind of hurting the American Olympians a little bit. I feel like maybe we'll use up like 75% of our stamina for sex instead of like 50. And so if you're a betting person, maybe bet on the other countries this year in the Summer Olympics, because I'm a little nervous about this whole AC twin bed unlimited sex thing. 300,000 condoms is a lot of condoms.
Yeah. And that's just for me. But I think that's who they put in there. I'm not going. But I'm gonna have them send them over here. Does this joke make any sense? It doesn't. That's why people don't like wordplay. You know what I mean? Because that wasn't even wordplay and it didn't make sense. That's the worst kind of, I mean, I guess I'm with you, Rod. Bet on the people who come from countries where it's as hot as it ever is, and they're accustomed to it. Like people who train, in like Colorado, like up if you're already at
Right.
that altitude and then you come down, then your lungs are, it's like swinging three
And
bats.
here's what's interesting too: is the Summer Olympics. So we're sending athletes that are used to being outdoors in high heat, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying the average temperature in France they believe to be between 73 to 79 degrees. That's great in America. That's
Oh yeah.
we'd all trade right now for 73 to 79 in this environment. So it's weird that they're bringing the AC. I'm not really sure why. It's like it is the most American thing to bring
Yeah,
an AC
they
to
was
another
like,
country when you do not need it.
we like air
They're
conditioning.
like, it's much cooler here than it is where you're coming from. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm American. I'm gonna bring my own AC.
Mm-hmm.
Just plug it in.
Like a smooth
Just a
68.
creature,
No, thank you.
just a creature comforts of a 64-degree day inside of my bed.
I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna get a private jet just for my air conditioner, and then a separate one for me. So,
Yeah,
and then we can discuss the Paris Climate Accords. Yeah.
right. And Taylor Swift can be her jet, but then Mike can ride it, and then everybody will be mad at that. Okay.
Yeah, my mom's
Billy
like,
Zane.
look, your private jet is the same as Taylor's. Yeah. I'm like, mine is Delta Comfort Plus, hopefully. Yeah.
And then I want to do one more story.
Okay.
I just think this is interesting. Mike's an interesting person. Like talking about him, talking with him about things.
Mm-hmm.
So Billy Zane is an actor.
Okay.
Titanic.
And
Yeah.
he recently proposed or suggested that actors should get emotional stunt pay. He said this after he transformed into the Sarah Lawrence cult leader Larry Ray for the upcoming Lifetime movie Devil on Campus, the Larry Ray story. Ray was an ex-con who moved into his daughter's dorm at Sarah Lawrence College in 2010 and gained manipulative control over her roommates' lives. His abusive sex cult lasted for a decade before he was convicted and given a 60-year sentence. Playing Ray required Zane to gain weight and film several abuse scenes. Actors should get emotional stunt pay, he said. The secondary experience encroaches on the primary. It really does. You're recreating my weird trauma. We're putting coursing adrenaline through our bodies and depleting serotonin and dopamine and freaking ourselves out, and the body registers it. What do you think about the idea of emotion? What does he call it? Emotional stunt pay for actors who have to play these these super weird roles.
First, I'll say I heard a story once. I forget the actor involved, which is good because I don't want to besmirch anyone or get details wrong. But like they had to be tired. The character stayed up all night, so the actor stayed up all night, and then some other actor was like, "Hey, did you ever consider acting?" And and I feel like there's like maybe the David Mamet school of acting where he's just like, just say the words that are written. And
Right.
but then I feel like there's different kinds of actors out there. Like there's some actors that are always playing like a version of themselves, and you're like, oh wow, it's cool. We love that person as that character, as this character. And then there's people who like disappear into roles like a Christian Bale or like a Gary Oldman, or various character, like so many actors do put a lot of work into it. And so like I believe him that I know, like I think I read Bob Odenkirk's book that was called Comedy Drama, I think, about his career being that. And then now when he plays dramatic roles, he sometimes does, I don't know if he has to, but the way that he does it is like if he has to appear traumatized or angry or upset, like he does think about those things or brings up painful memories. And I mean, I don't know, like I'm no economist of acting. Like I don't know, like if you're getting paid a lot of money to be an actor, that like Billy Zane I imagine is, like I don't know, like sometimes as a comedian, I'll talk about what I know. Sometimes a person's like, hey, you want to come here? I'll pay you this much money plus airfare. I'll be like, great. And sometimes they're like, hey, I'll give you this much money. And then I'm like, airfare? And like, you pay for the airfare. You get here. This is the money that I have to pay. And if it's worth it, then I do it. And like, not every gig pays the same. Not every gig is the same. Brian Regan, I mentioned earlier, classic hero of the Sully hero joke. he said on Mark Maron's podcast, I think, he's like, my first time performing at a college, I got paid $1,000. And then I drove into New York City and did a set and I got paid $20. And he's like, what's my comedy worth? Is it worth $1,000 or is it worth $20? And, it depends. And
Right.
so, I mean, I think that hopefully, like, there is some, universal basic income or like the SAG-AFTRA minimum for a union acting job that you get paid. And maybe they can take into account, like, if something is physically grueling, like, then you deserve to get paid more if people agree about that. If something is emotionally grueling or could be, like, I buy it. Like, I've read studies that say if you go through a breakup, like, that can be as painful. Like, your brain processes the pain the same way as it processes like the pain of a broken arm or a broken limb. And I guess the question is just then, like, for actors, like, I'm not the kind of actor, I've never done the kind of acting that has brought up traumatic things to
Right,
like,
but also, like, who's to say? Like, maybe my barista has a backstory that you don't know about Billy Zane. So when their cult leader goes to ask me for coffee, I'm thinking about the time that I was brutally beaten when I was 14. And that's why I'm serving the coffee. And that's why I actually dropped the cup in the script. But y'all don't know where I had to go to the dark places of my mind to drop that cup that's in the script for me to drop that cup, even though I have a lot of speaking lines. Where's my emotional hazard pay? Karen, I do want to ask your thoughts on this too.
It's a mixed bag because, like I say, it's varying different actors, and I think that if this is a thing, it needs to be negotiated. Like they need to go and negotiate this in in
Yeah,
how
it sounds like
it's
that would be part of the negotiations. Pay me more money.
yes, yeah, and also
What are you gonna use it for? Don't fucking worry about that part. I might need some emotional trauma pay after this,
yeah.
huh? But I want more money than what you're offering.
And somebody brought up in the chat, and I do agree. Sometimes you might need therapists on set, which is
They have that a lot of
yeah,
times. Yeah.
and so it's one of those things where that can kind of help people get through
Yeah.
these things, to kind of assist, them through somebody that's kind of trained in these
Right.
areas, to kind of help them process it.
So here's what I'll say. I think this is the greatest humble brag Billy Zane's ever done. I think this is him trying to convince us, like, you better watch this fucking movie. The way I was playing this cult guy, it's like I was this cult guy. And if you don't watch this Lifetime performance, because it's a once in a lifetime performance for me on Lifetime, you're going to regret that you did not see Billy Zane take it to the darkest place he's ever taken it. I'm sick. I was depraved. I'm gonna need therapy. I was so good in this movie. I think that's what he's doing. I think it's brilliant marketing. I don't know if we'll ever see emotional trauma pay because that's what the money's for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, it's like you like as you said earlier, it's like you're getting paid extra to act, and then like who determines which one is it? So
because everybody's different.
What about the people that got beaten in the script?
Yeah.
What about the camera person? Like, I think this is just him humble bragging.
Emotional trauma reparations are needed, definitely. Like, retroactively for anyone who has ever experienced, the people in 12 Years a Slave, the people in Amistad, the people.
What if
honestly,
they pay you? What if you just pay the person the same amount, but you tell them it's emotional trauma pay?
I mean, I honestly think that there is a really interesting philosophical question here, and part of it's about capitalism. Part of it is about the human condition of not knowing the future. Part of it is about like negotiating in general. Like, sometimes you're like, man, this show, I need a lot. Like, I heard a story once, like, I won't say the comedian, but I heard there's a comedian who like doesn't like perform at colleges. And so he's like, agent, if a person wants me to perform at a college, quote them $75,000. If they can come up with $75,000, I'll do a thing I don't want to do, because why not?
Right.
But otherwise, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. And I tweeted something about this, and I kind of really emotionally feel this, that sometimes I show up at a club and they're like, how long a set do you want to do? And I'm like, I tell them, like, if I'm working on an hour, I'll do an hour. I was like, sometimes I'm like, I'll do at least 40, 45. Do I have to tell you exactly? Like somewhere between 40 and 60, because it'll depend on the circumstances. I'm like, but the real answer is, oh, how long do I want to do? Can I answer you, I don't know, 30 seconds into my set? Can I answer you? Can I like update you recalculating in real time throughout the set? And but there's something real in the fact, in the idea that time is money here. Like
Right.
how much, like that's what a negotiation is. You're in advance deciding this is what's going to happen in the future, and you might be wrong. So I totally get that Billy Zane signed up to do this gig, and I'm sure he got paid fairly and well, and more than fairly well. And then afterwards, I don't doubt, I think you're right. It is good marketing. This is an interesting, like sticky topic. And also probably he's telling the truth that it was hard. Maybe it was harder than he thought it would be. And he wants more money.
Also, it's in print, so I can't really tell his tone, because sometimes I think people say stuff that's not as serious as the because it
as the writing is.
One of the reasons I'm glad Myq is here is because I did think very philosophically about this when I heard it, but I didn't go play the clip because I was like, he probably just said it like, man, we need like emotional extra pay. This was, I went there in this role. This was crazy, girl. Okay, and in my mind, I'm like, we need emotional trauma pay.
Yeah.
Because tone matters. Tone matters.
One time, I think there are great journalists covering comedy, and then there's also a lot of other people writing down what happened at comedy shows. And like even some people misquote, like I've been interviewed, numerous times over my 20 plus years in comedy. And when people get a story like good and right, I'm like, oh man, like we should be friends because you care and you get it. And then every once in a while, like they don't even get the quote right, and then it becomes part of a narrative that isn't even true. And then sometimes they get the words right, but the words, I remember one time, and there's like in the album version of my special Small Dork and Handsome, at the end of it there's a bonus track that is only available in the audio form, where I talk about when one of my jokes about being vegan got like co-opted by a butcher shop, and they like put it on their wall. It was like, to me, a self-deprecating fun joke, and to them an anti-vegan joke that they're like, haha, vegans are like this. Whereas I'm like, if a butcher shop says haha, vegans are like this, it's different when I, a vegan, say haha, vegans are like this. And like I can make a joke about my mom, and if you make a joke about my mom, I will eat you even though I'm vegan. And what I'm saying, like, so they did that, and then like I posted about it, and I like put on my website, I wasn't really quote angry about it, but I was like, it irked me, and I thought they did the wrong thing. And to their credit, when they responded and they were like, we're sorry, we didn't realize like they should have quoted me and this and that. But it went really viral for a little while. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because like in the article that somebody wrote about my response to them doing this, they were like, I think it was something like they said Kaplan, like they quoted me and said Kaplan fumed. And I'm like, I didn't fume. Like I said this as a joke. I posted it as a joke.
Cartoon character.
Yeah, I joked as an angry character about this thing, and they're like, he is fuming. And so like clearly, to your point, that's what's going on probably with Billy Zane. I mean, he's an actor. Maybe the whole thing's part of an act.
Right. Yes, that's true too.
And I'll wrap on this, but the thing also is there's an assumption. This happens with a lot of our problems in America, and I don't know what to do with this. It's just a thing I always think that I don't think there's a real solution to. It's just a matter of how you think about it in that moment, and it varies for all of us. But even though many of us recognize the ills of like capitalism and how it's so consumptual, it consumes so much, but it also like can consume your mind and your way of thinking, and people justify things by money. It's, oh, this person did this thing that's messed up, but it was for money, so we understand why they did it, so it's not as bad as if it wasn't for money or something, right? But one thing we also, even those of us that like justice and equality and all the good things, we also have a hard time thinking outside of just terms of money. And so I saw people sharing this. Once again, I don't know if he meant it the way people were taking it, but they were sharing it very seriously. And they were like, this actor, Michael K. Williams, played a role that was so traumatizing. He did drugs and he died of an overdose, and like that role killed him or something. And I'm like, and it's like we had emotional trauma pay. And it's like, didn't he have money to buy more drugs? Like what? Like we don't know what would happen. The assumption is money would fix it.
Yes.
But we're talking about like emotional trauma, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of music. Money's not fixing it. Like there's a lot of like it's not a guarantee. I know we all want to try it. I'm not saying you don't go give it a shot if you can get your hands on a lot of money, but it seems that there's a lot of people with resources and that still end up with issues,
Right.
even with all that money and stuff. But it was funny because I think the discussion spawned into some form of like, yeah, money would fix this problem, and I just don't think I even with if you had a here's an extra $100,000 because you were so good and that must have made you be even like feel even worse. It's like, oh, extra $100,000. I feel great now. That was no longer trauma. Those scenes beating people affected me not at all. I don't know if that's true.
Well, here's what I say. I think you're on the right track. What we need to do is offer trauma pay in gift certificates to therapy. That's the only thing that's allowed. Because do you know that Jim? I think you're absolutely right. Jim Carrey famously said, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't think anyone wants to hear it, but I mean, how many examples do we need of like, oh man, the money did not fix that? You know what I mean?
Because there's other things that money just can't fix.
Now I do want to say, okay, 20 years in comedy. 7 years, 363 days from 8 years of relationship with Renee. When the hell are you getting married? And what if I'm so nosy? I just need to know the answer to that somewhere within the next couple of months.
I mean, is it going to be around 10, double digits?
What would I need to do in order to find out what's going on, Mike?
Rod, this is kind of bananas because I thought I explained this earlier, but I'll do it one more time. On August 22nd in New York City at a place called the Actors Temple Theater, I will be recording, filming I've recorded a few specials over the years, but I haven't done a 1 hour video special. I've done a lot of albums, a lot of hours of comedy audio exist. I did a half-hour dry bar special a couple years ago, but this is not since 2014 has there been an hour special of mine filmed. So this is really, really special. Not since this relationship began, not since, I've been doing comedy for more than, it's been more than 20 years now. So I'm really excited. August 22nd, New York City, the Actors Temple Theater. Tickets at my website, or message me if you can be there and want to be there. And buying a ticket is a higher bar to entry than you can muster. And I would just love to fill the place with, y'all. I love coming on this show. I love the chat. I love all the fans. I love you. And I love that when people come out, people have come out to see me because they've heard me on the show, and it means a lot. And so if you can and do and have all the gratitude, I really appreciate it.
And look, if you can afford a ticket, buy it, because he might need the extra money for the emotional trauma that he's gonna put himself through being funny for you. Okay, it's not all just mean people that have mean characters. Sometimes good people need emotional trauma to build up their comedic jokes.
Do you know, in fact, on Eventbrite, we made it so that you can buy a ticket for $10 and you can also buy a ticket for $25. And we only put it that, like, if you want to be if you just have extra money that you want to give, like, it costs a lot to make a comedy special. Like, every bit helps. We appreciate it. But yeah, if you want to, I don't know if we're going to change it officially, but feel free, metaphorically, in spirit that $25 ticket or more. Feel free to buy multiple tickets. Buy as many as you want. Venmo me as much emotional support. I promise that I'll put it towards making myself feel healthy.
And look, we don't know what the amount is. It can be different for every person because emotional trauma is just like riding a bike. Until next episode, I love you.
I love you too, baby.
I love you. Just like riding a BYQ. Yeah.
That's hilarious, Mike. Y'all have a good one. This is great.
That was fun.
Thank you. Always.